morning, Xander.
Good morning, Sophie. How are we doing today?
All right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Very good. So I was just having a look at the front pages, seeing what's happening around.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to start. Should we start with our front page?
Yeah, we can start with our front
Straight
page.
into it this morning. There's no hanging about. So this is our front page today.
Yeah, so we've obviously gone with basically the same story as every other newspaper, as far as I can tell. It's Boris Johnson refusing to actually quit. I mean, he said he's going to resign. He said he's forming a new cabinet and he'll leave when a new leader has been chosen, is what he's actually said. So, I mean, he's resigned, but he's still very much living in number 10 and calling the shots.
A lot of people have also been pointing out that he hasn't been to the Queen yet. And that's sort of the first time a Prime Minister hasn't done that after resignation.
I was reading reports that he did ring the Queen on Thursday morning. So, and reports he was planning on
before he made his announcement.
Yeah, reports broke that he was going to resign at about 9 a.m., 9:15, something like that, yesterday morning. And I read reports saying that he had rung the Queen before that to let her know of his intentions. So, I mean, he also spoken to her on Wednesday evening as part of his show of getting on with the job, because he had his weekly meeting scheduled with her, as Prime Ministers do. Not that the monarch has any political power, of course. She just speaks personally to the Prime Minister once a week. But yeah, the front pages it is interesting when you have a day like this where just every newspaper knows exactly what the story that has to go on the front page is, because I mean, you get to have a little look at how they're all dealing with it. We were quite happy with our leave means leave joke, but it seems to have been also picked up by the Metro. They've got exactly the same line, which is a little bit bullying, but at least it shows great minds think alike, I suppose. Exactly. The Daily Record have got a long list of Johnson's failures and scandals, and they brand him the worst PM ever. And I mean, it's quite hard to disagree with that assessment. Maybe 250 years ago, there was a prime minister who was 15 straight out of Eton or something, but that's pretty much what Boris Johnson's mindset is anyway. So I'd struggle to see there's the worst one in history.
Yeah.
The Daily Mails is interesting. I'll just comment because obviously they have their UK edition and then they have their Scottish edition.
Yeah.
And there's quite a glaring difference between the two. The one that people will be seeing down in England is headlined, "What the hell have they done?" And we've got Johnson loyalist, the attack dog Nadine Dorris. She's sharing that on Twitter as it is, asking what the hell people have done and getting rid of Boris Johnson. But they obviously thought that message wouldn't go down quite as well in Scotland. So up here, the Mail's headline reads "The Long Goodbye," which is quite a different take on the same story.
Yeah, here it is, "The Long Goodbye."
Yeah. Well, hopefully it won't be too long. I mean, we've got quite a lot of prominent Tories, including former Prime Minister John Major, Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross, even if they do consider him a lightweight, saying that they would like an interim Prime Minister to take Boris Johnson's place. So we'll see if that happens. We'll see if they let Boris Johnson stay. But I, at least, am going to be referring to him as the interim Prime Minister in all of the copy from here on out. So no more Prime Minister Johnson, only interim.
Interim Prime Minister. I like the term caretaker Prime Minister. It's just a funny term for Boris Johnson. Don't think he'd like that.
I can't say caretaking, taking care is something that overly springs to mind when I think.
No, it just doesn't fit with Boris Johnson. Care and Boris Johnson don't go together.
Well, stay away from that. But obviously, Boris Johnson's protracted resignation, which might take months, has opened up the leadership contest, and it's a wide open field. It's a wide open field. What have you seen so far in that respect?
Well, so the Scottish Tories are backing Penny Mordaunt. Is that how you say it? Penny Mordaunt?
I would say Mordaunt. Yeah, Mordaunt.
Mordaunt. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. Wait, TBC on that, but they're backing her because they're saying she's a very effective communicator. And she actually yesterday was on the same odds as Rishi Sunak. So I think some people might sort of think, oh, she's kind of sprung out of nowhere. That's what I thought to begin with. But actually, I've seen quite a lot of talk about how she hasn't, because she maybe hasn't necessarily been a massive name before, that might work in her favour. I'm not actually, from what I can see, she hasn't officially announced a leadership she's going to run yet, has she?
The big players tend to hang back, don't they? I mean, we saw Suella Braverman announcing her pitch before Boris Johnson had resigned, before
live
she
on
was
TV,
Attorney General in his cabinet, and she was just on Peston announcing her plans to run for his job, which was interesting. But I think she had to get out of the gates early because no one really thinks Braverman's going to win. Ben Wallace is being talked about a lot, the current Defence Secretary. Penny Mordaunt is a former Defence Secretary. Yeah. But she was fired by Johnson and then made a trade minister. So, I mean, if we're hoping for a grand reset from Boris Johnson's ousting, I mean, it's interesting that all the runners and riders are being talked about, like Sajid Javid, Rishi Sunak, Ben Wallace, Penny Mordaunt, all of them were ministers in his government, even cabinet secretaries. I mean, I struggle to see that we're going to get a grand reset when all these ministers have been trotted out to defend Boris Johnson for whichever scandal it may have been. It feels like it's just been a constant flurry of just scandals coming out of Number 10 for months and months and months. So it's hard to see how anyone been so closely linked to that really represents a reset.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Hunt also is another name that's been sort of bandied around a bit, and he's obviously been fairly critical of Boris Johnson for quite a while. But Jeremy Hunt is remembered famously for his period as health minister, which, I mean, he's widely discredited with having sort of created mass problems for the NHS.
Yeah, there were a lot of strikes during his tenure.
Yeah, the first ever NHS strikes were under Jeremy Hunt. And the book, This Is Going to Hurt, if you've read that by Adam Kay, is the Junior Doctor Diaries. It has quite a scathing letter to Jeremy Hunt at the end. So he's sort of someone that might get
whether or not Hunt's had his chance. I mean, he obviously came second to Boris Johnson in the previous leadership election. Whether or not Hunt's chance has been and gone, I might subscribe to that camp, to be honest. I'd probably be surprised if Hunt came in. I think Liz Truss people are talking about as an option. It was obviously quite funny that Truss, who has just been on manoeuvres for months, she's been plotting a leadership bid. Despite all this, no, I haven't. She's been whining and dining MP. She's been planning to go for the top job for months and months. And when the world finally does fall in around Boris Johnson, she's on a flight to Indonesia, powerless.
Turns back immediately.
Yeah.
Straight on a flight home.
Which is great for the climate crisis, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm sure Truss was absolutely gutted to have missed out on all the machinations that were going on in Number 10 on Tuesday and Wednesday, and no doubt even today. So I mean, yeah, we can't speculate on who's going to be Tory leader forever. We're just going to hope for a swift transition. I think get Boris Johnson out of Downing Street as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have to think about the impact on Scotland of a change of leadership. Like, what do you think about this, Sophie? Do you think Scottish independence really stands to benefit at all?
Well, I think it's going to be quite interesting. I mean, I think the movement sort of already benefited so much from Boris Johnson as having Boris Johnson as the Prime Minister. I mean, that's been quite widely talked about, that, you know, it's lots of people have said he's the best sort of tool for independence. And I think, well, we've had Nicola Sturgeon write for the National today, so go out and buy your paper today, because she's written a piece exclusively for the National, where she talks about how, you know, these problems are not just associated with Boris Johnson. It's not one person. It's a whole sort of ethos at Westminster, and that's her. You know, one of the arguments for get Scotland out.
Certainly, Ian Blackford said the other day when he was asked a similar question. I mean, a lot of the pundits were asking whether or not Boris Johnson's departure would actually be bad for Scottish independence. For the Scottish independence movement. Douglas Ross was asked yesterday whether or not it wouldn't be a boon for the Tories in Scotland to have such an unpopular leader north of the border ousted. But yeah, realistically, we have to see Boris Johnson as just a symptom of the Westminster problem. I mean, how many? I can't remember the stat off the top of my head now, but just so many of the previous prime ministers all went to Oxbridge, didn't they? I think maybe Gordon Brown, Tony Blair was the only one that didn't. It's just it's ruled by the upper classes, isn't it? It's not a real functioning social mobility that just has people from the same three schools running the country again and again and again and again.
Yeah. And then get all their friends into cabinet.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Hancock famously went to university with that woman who he was caught having an affair with, and that seems to be a very big pattern down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is about the system on the whole, the system that allowed Boris Johnson to get in, and I think that's the focus. That needs to be the focus rather than Boris Johnson himself. But we can't go on all day, so we should probably start wrapping up. But yeah, as Sophie said, we've got Nicola Sturgeon writing exclusively for the National. You can catch that in the paper or on our website that goes through all of this. We've got Richard Walker, obviously the former Sunday Herald editor and the founding editor of the National. He's looking at 3 different options, like what could happen next with Scottish independence, depending on what Boris Johnson does, depending on who could take over, depending on whether there's a snap general election. So that's really, really good analysis from Richard there. I mean, there's the story about Boris Johnson's champagne-soaked wedding party, which he reportedly
which has been cancelled.
Yeah.
Go ahead and checkers. We'll be allowed to go ahead and checkers.
I can't believe it's been cancelled. It's bloody cancel culture all over again, isn't it?
Oh.
Lefties. It's the lefty lawyers. But yeah, anyway, so we'll get back to that. But
you can read all of our. We'll have lots of good stuff coming over. I mean, remember that we're Scotland's only paper that supports Scottish independence, so now is the time to subscribe as we move towards next year's referendum. We've got some. If you go to the national.scot/subscribe, I think we've got some deals on at the moment, so you can subscribe there. Get all of Xander's exclusives, which are always very good. But thank you very much and have a good Friday, everyone.